the eternal chamber. The harmonious assembly hall floated in the void between galaxies, a structure of crystallized time itself. Inside, the grand deliberation continued as it had for 3 centuries. Ambassador Vexthoria of the Lumini Collective adjusted her 7 optical sensors, watching the current speaker with the same patience her species had cultivated over millennia. The speaker, High Arbiter Krelvas from the Chronoweavers, had been presenting his opening argument for the past 6 months. And thus, we must consider the 17,000th subsection of the 4th appendix, Krelvas intoned, his voice resonating through translation matrices in 47 languages simultaneously. Vexthoria had been present for all 300 years. Her people lived for epochs. This was merely an afternoon in cosmic terms. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 847 species maintained their positions, some in stasis fields, others in meditation pods, a few actually awake and listening. The question before them was simple. Should the Galactic Consortium intervene in the development of pre-spaceflight civilizations if those civilizations were on the verge of self-destruction? Simple question. 300 years of debate. The Chronoweavers argued that time itself would sort out such species. Those meant to survive would find a way. The Empathic Collective insisted that moral obligation required intervention. The Silicon Confederacy maintained that biological civilizations were inherently unstable and not worth the resource allocation. The Lumini, like Vexthoria's people, believed in careful study before action, which is why they'd suggested only 500 years of deliberation initially. A shimmer of quantum displacement announced a new arrival. Protocol Officer Zinmari, a being of pure organized energy, manifested in the center of the chamber. Honored delegates, we have an unusual situation. Krelvas paused mid-syllable, an event so rare that several delegates emerged from meditation to witness it. A new species has requested emergency audience, Zinmari continued. They claim to have a solution to our current deliberation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber in subsonic frequencies, psychic wavelengths and chemical signatures. Impossible, declared Senator Thoraxi of the Infinite Bureaucracy. This matter requires careful consideration. We've barely begun exploring the preliminary frameworks. Another 200 years minimum before we could even consider external input. The species in question, Zinmari said carefully, is from Sol 3. They call themselves humans. They achieved faster-than-light travel approximately 4 weeks ago. The chamber erupted. For weeks? Most species took centuries to master FTL travel after their first successful test. The Lumini had taken 800 years. The Chronoweavers, in their nonlinear perception of time, still weren't entirely sure when they discovered it. This is highly irregular, Vexthoria observed, which in Lumini diplomatic language meant something between absolutely unprecedented and potentially catastrophic. The humans have been observing our deliberation through the public quantum feed, Zinmari explained. They sent a simple message: we can help. We've dealt with this before. Dealt with this. Krelvas's temporal fragments seemed to vibrate with indignation. They've barely left their own star system. What could they possibly know about managing galactic-scale ethical considerations? They also noted, Zinmari added, consulting the energy matrix before him, that you've been debating for longer than their entire recorded history and they quote, maybe fresh eyes would help. Commander Silix of the Martial Concordat, a crystalline being who rarely spoke, chimed like wind through glass. I say let them try. What's the worst that could happen? We waste a few hours? We've wasted centuries already. Hours? Senator Thoraxi's bureaucratic appendages quivered. No species could possibly address this matter in mere hours. The filing requirements alone. I vote to admit them, Vexthoria interrupted, surprising herself. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the faint hope that something, anything, might break the elegant stalemate they'd crafted. The vote proceeded through proper channels, which took 3 days. By a narrow margin of 429 to 418, the motion carried. Bring in the humans, Krelvas declared. Let us see what these newcomers think they can contribute. Vexthoria settled her consciousness into full alertness for the first time in decades. She had studied humans briefly. Their planet was on the watch list as one of those potentially self-destructing civilizations the debate was actually about. They were violent, short-lived, and apparently very confident. This would be educational if nothing else. The quantum displacement shimmer appeared again, and 3 humans materialized on the presentation platform. Vexthoria's sensors focused with interest. They looked so fragile. Soft skin, minimal natural defenses, lifespans that could be measured in mere decades. One of them was carrying what appeared to be a primitive data storage device in several containers of dark liquid. The human in the center, a female with hair the color of solar flares, smiled broadly. "Hi everyone," she said, her voice translated and amplified. "I'm Captain Zara Okafor, United Earth Diplomatic Corps. This is Dr. Marcus Chin, Xenosociology Specialist, and Commander Jace Reeves, Conflict Resolution Expert. We understand you've got a bit of a gridlock here. We've brought coffee, presentation slides, and a deadline. Let's get this sorted by lunch." Vexthoria felt something she hadn't experienced in 200 years, complete bewilderment. Lunch? These beings thought in terms of meals? This was going to be far more interesting than she'd anticipated. The human approach. Krelvass regarded the three humans with what could only be described as temporal confusion. In all his existence witnessing the rise and fall of civilizations, he had never encountered beings who seemed so urgent. "Captain Okafor," he began, his words carefully selected to convey proper diplomatic weight, "you do understand that this deliberation addresses the fundamental ethical framework governing our interaction with emerging civilizations? Such matters cannot be rushed." Zara set down her container of coffee on the presentation platform, and several delegates recoiled. "Liquid? In the Eternal Chamber?" The breach of protocol was staggering. "With respect, Arbiter," Zara replied, "you've been debating whether to save dying civilizations for 300 years. In that time, how many have you actually saved?" Silence fell across the chamber. "That's not the point," Senator Thoraxi finally managed. "We must establish perfect policy before implementation. Hasty action leads to chaos." Dr. Marcus Chin stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. "Actual primitive optical correction devices," Vexthoria noted with fascination. "May I ask a question? How many civilizations have gone extinct while you've been debating?" Zinmeri materialized data in the air. 1,847 civilizations had self-destructed in the past 300 years. "See," Marcus continued gently, "on Earth we have a saying, perfect is the enemy of good. You're so focused on finding the flawless solution that you've implemented no solution at all." "Unacceptable," declared High Philosopher Zendith of the Contemplative Ascendancy. "Each of those civilizations represents unique variables. We cannot simply apply a broad-spectrum approach." "Why not?" Commander Jace Reeves spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but carried a weight that surprised Vexthoria. "You've identified the core problem, right? Civilizations reach a critical technological threshold and either transcend it or destroy themselves. What's the actual disagreement?" "The methodology," multiple delegates chimed in unison. "The resource allocation," added the Silicon Confederacy. "The moral authority," insisted the Empathic Collective. "The temporal implications," Krelvass contributed. Jace held up his hand and remarkably they all quieted. "So you agree on the problem and that it needs solving. You disagree on details of implementation. That's not a 3-century debate. That's a manageable diplomatic negotiation." "You oversimplify," Vexthoria found herself saying. "There are 847 different species represented here, each with vastly different perspectives, lifespans, and values. Consensus is nearly impossible." Zara grinned. "Nearly impossible is pretty much humanity's specialty. Marcus, you want to bring up slide 1? Marcus activated a holographic display from their primitive device. It showed Earth rotating peacefully. 196 countries, Marcus began. Thousands of cultures. 7 billion humans each thinking they're right about everything. Different religions, political systems, values, you name it. And yeah, we fight. We argue. We've nearly destroyed ourselves. Oh, about a dozen times in the last century alone. This is meant to inspire confidence? Krelvass asked. Nope, Zara said cheerfully. It's meant to establish credentials. We're experts at getting diverse, stubborn groups to work together despite completely different worldviews. You know what we call it? Chaos, suggested Senator Thoraxi. Democracy, Jace corrected. Representative decision-making. Compromise. The messy art of finding solutions everyone can live with, even if nobody gets exactly what they want. Vexthoria felt her optical sensors widening. You're suggesting we abandon our consensus model? I'm suggesting your consensus model is why you've been stuck for 3 centuries, Jace replied. You're waiting for everyone to agree. That's never going to happen. What you need is a majority to agree on an acceptable path forward. But the minority opinions, began dozens of delegates. Get documented, get protected, Get implemented where appropriate, Zara cut in. Look, we're not saying ignore people. We're saying you can respect every viewpoint without requiring every viewpoint to control the outcome. Next slide, Marcus. The display changed to show a simple flowchart. This is how we're going to resolve this today, Zara announced. Step 1. Clearly define the actual question. Step 2. Identify what everyone agrees on. Step 3. Categorize the actual disagreements. Step 4. Prioritize which disagreements actually matter. Step 5. Vote on a framework that addresses the top priorities. Step 6. Implement with a review period. Step 7. Lunch. Impossible, erupted from multiple quarters. We did it last month with the Mars Colony Treaty, Marcus said mildly. 73 nations, conflicting claims, 3 different proposed governance models. We hammered it out in 4 hours. It's not perfect, but it's working. Commander Silix's crystalline form chimed thoughtfully. Let them try. Observer Vexthoria, what do you think? Vexthoria found herself in an unusual position. Her people were known for extreme caution, yet something about these humans intrigued her. They had survived themselves, barely, but they had. They'd achieved the impossible, planetary cooperation despite being naturally fractious. I propose a time limit, she said slowly. Give the humans 6 hours. If they fail, we return to proper deliberation. 3 hours, Zara countered. Because I promise you, if we can't break the gridlock in 3 hours, 6 won't help. Plus, the coffee will get cold. The vote took 2 hours, efficiency for the council, but eventually passed. Zara cracked her knuckles, a gesture that made several species recoil in alarm, and smiled. All right, folks, let's make some history. First question. Can someone explain in 1 sentence each why you've been debating this for 300 years? What followed was the most chaotic 30 minutes the Eternal Chamber had ever witnessed. Breaking the stalemate. 43 species tried to answer Zara's question simultaneously, in 17 different dimensional frequencies. Stop. Jace's voice cut through the cacophony. One at a time. Arbiter Krelvass, you've been leading this deliberation. 1 sentence. Why has this taken 300 years? Krelvass's temporal fragments swirled in what might have been irritation. Because we cannot agree on the fundamental basis for intervention, whether it should be rights-based, utility-based, or evolution-based. Good, Zara said, typing rapidly on her device. Next. Senator Thoraxi? We cannot agree on implementation mechanics, oversight structures, or appeals processes. Excellent. Commander Silix. We cannot agree on who pays for it. Zara pointed at the crystalline warrior. Now we're getting somewhere. Keep going. One by one, she pulled single-sentence answers from each major faction. Marcus projected them all on the hologram and patterns began to emerge. Vexthoria watched with growing fascination. The humans weren't trying to address every concern, they were categorizing them. Within 20 minutes, they had reduced 3 centuries of debate to 7 major categories: philosophical basis, implementation mechanics, resource allocation, oversight authority, cultural interference limits, success metrics, and long-term consequences. Okay, Zara said, surveying the list. Now here's the thing, and please don't throw me out of the airlock for saying this, but most of you are arguing about different things entirely. You're talking past each other. Explain, Vexthoria demanded. Marcus stepped forward. The Chronoweavers are stuck on philosophical basis. They need to know why intervention is justified. The infinite bureaucracy is fixated on implementation mechanics. The Silicon Confederacy only cares about resource allocation. You're having 7 different debates simultaneously and calling it one deliberation. Of course we are. High philosopher Zendith protested. These issues are interconnected. Sure, Jace agreed. But that doesn't mean you solve them all at once. Here's what humans learn the hard way. Complex problems need modular solutions. You build frameworks, not monoliths. Zara pulled up a new slide. So here's our proposal. Instead of one massive policy that tries to satisfy everyone on everything, you create a tiered response system. Different situations, different approaches, different philosophical justifications. Heresy, declared multiple delegates. Pragmatism, Zara corrected. Look, some civilizations are dying from environmental collapse. Others from nuclear war. Some from plague, some from AI gone wrong, some from resource depletion. Why would you use the same intervention approach for all of them? Vexthoria felt something click in her mind. We've been trying to create a universal framework. When you should be creating a decision tree, Marcus finished. Assess the situation, apply the appropriate category of response. Some interventions can be minimal and evolution-based. Others require direct action and are utility-based. The philosophy adapts to the circumstance. But the consistency, Senator Thoraxy began, is maintained through consistent evaluation criteria, not consistent responses, Jace interjected. Every civilization gets assessed the same way. But the response varies based on what they actually need. Krelvass's temporal form seemed to stabilize for the first time. You're suggesting a matrix approach? Exactly. Zara pulled up a new diagram. X-axis, type of existential threat. Y-axis, civilization's readiness level. Each intersection gets a different intervention protocol. You can debate each cell of the matrix independently. That would be 847 different protocols, calculated the Silicon Confederacy's representative. More like 40, Marcus corrected. Most threats fall into a dozen categories. Most civilizations fall into 4 readiness levels. That's 48 base protocols with room for special circumstances. 48 debates instead of one infinite debate, Vexthoria mused. Each potentially resolvable. In days, not decades, Zara confirmed. And here's the beautiful part, you don't need universal agreement. The Chronoweavers can own the protocols for civilizations that are nearly ready to transcend. Minimal intervention, evolution-based approach. The Empathic Collective can own the protocols for civilizations in immediate crisis. Direct intervention, utility-based approach. Everyone gets jurisdiction over the scenarios that match their philosophy. The chamber erupted again, but this time it was different. Species were talking to each other, not past each other. Commander Silix chimed loudly. What about resources? Who funds these interventions? Jay smiled. That's the easiest part. Cost sharing based on benefit received. Civilizations that are saved eventually join the consortium, right? They contribute back. It's an investment, not an expense. We can even project ROI by threat category. Return on investment? Vexthoria felt her sensors focusing sharply. You'd monetize salvation? No, Marcus said gently. We'd acknowledge that saving civilizations has value, cultural, technological, economic, philosophical value, and distribute costs proportional to who benefits most from that value. The Silicon Confederacy values technological advancement. They fund tech threat interventions and get first access to any innovations. The Empathic Collective values life itself. They fund immediate crisis interventions. Everyone pays for what they value. Senator Thoraxy's appendages moved in complex patterns. Vexthoria recognized it as deep calculation. The bureaucratic framework would be manageable. 48 protocols, each with clear jurisdiction, funding mechanisms, and success metrics. We could implement oversight through existing structures. Now you're thinking like a human, Zara said with a grin. Messy, practical, and good enough to actually work. 1 hour down, 2 to go. Let's start voting on the framework structure before you all remember why you've been arguing for 3 centuries. Vexthoria found herself speaking before her conscious mind fully processed the decision. I move that we adopt the human proposal as a working framework for immediate implementation, subject to refinement. Seconded, chimed Commander Silix. But we haven't debated the merits. Krelvass protested, though even his temporal fragments seemed less agitated. We've been debating the merits for 300 years, Vexthoria replied. I propose we try implementation for a change. The vote moved forward with shocking speed. The humans had done something impossible. They'd made doing something more attractive than debating something. As the vote proceeded, Zara leaned over to Marcus and Jace. I can't believe this is actually working. Never underestimate the power of a deadline and free coffee, Jace whispered back. Vexthoria's advanced sensors picked up the comment and filed it away for future study. These humans were far more complex than their primitive appearance suggested. The devil in the details. The framework vote passed 612 to 235, a landslide by council standards. But as Zara had warned them, agreeing on a framework was the easy part. Now came the details. We need to categorize threat types, announced Senator Thoraxy, manifesting a holographic form that began filling with bureaucratic precision. Environmental collapse, nuclear warfare, biological warfare, artificial intelligence scenarios, resource depletion, cosmic impact events, internal political collapse. Pandemic scenarios, added the Empathic Collective's representative Healer Zirnath, a being of flowing liquid light. Technological cascades, contributed the Silicon Confederacy. Temporal paradoxes, Krelvass added. Zara held up her hand. Stop. We're going to be here forever if we try to list every possible thing that could go wrong. Marcus. Dr. Chin projected a new slide. Category theory. We don't list every threat. We create meta-categories based on intervention characteristics. Self-inflicted versus external. Rapid versus gradual. Reversible versus terminal. Technological versus biological versus social. That gives us, he calculated quickly, 8 meta-categories that cover 99% of scenarios. But the nuances, began high philosopher Zendith, get handled at the implementation level, Jace interrupted. The framework doesn't need to know if it's nuclear war or biological weapons. It needs to know, self-inflicted, rapid, potentially terminal, technological solution exists. That determines the response protocol. Vexthoria found herself nodding, then stopped, surprised at herself. Her people didn't nod, that was a human gesture she'd unconsciously adopted. The classification system would be elegant. Elegance is overrated, Zara said, taking a sip of her coffee. Several delegates watched the action with disturbed fascination. Functionality is what matters. Can we classify a crisis in under 6 hours? Can we deploy a response team in under a week? If yes, it's a good system. 6 hours? A week. Krelvass's temporal form rippled with disbelief. Our current assessment protocols require a minimum of 17 months. Which is why 1,847 civilizations died while you debated, Marcus said quietly. Speed matters. Imperfect action today beats perfect action never. The chamber fell silent. It was a harsh truth, delivered without malice, which somehow made it more powerful. Commander Silix chimed softly. The human is correct. We have prioritized precision over effectiveness. Continue, Captain Okafor. What about readiness levels? Zara brightened. This is actually straightforward. Level 1, pre-industrial, not facing immediate crisis, watch only. Level 2, industrial age, developing concerning capabilities, monitoring and subtle guidance. Level 3, nuclear age equivalent, active crisis possible, intervention preparation authorized. Level 4, space-capable, existential crisis imminent or occurring, direct intervention authorized. Too simple, argued multiple delegates. Exactly simple enough, Vexthoria countered, surprising herself again. Our previous models required evaluating 247 different civilizational metrics. This requires 4 clear thresholds. It's implementable. Observer Vexthoria, are you feeling well? Senator Thoraxi asked with genuine concern. You're advocating for simplification. I'm advocating for solutions, Vexthoria replied. The humans have taught me something in the past hour. Complexity serves precision, but simplicity serves action. We need both, but we've had only complexity for 3 centuries. Zara shot her a grateful look. Okay, so we have 8 threat categories and 4 readiness levels. That's 32 base protocols. Add special categories for first contact scenarios, post-intervention stabilization, and cases requiring multi-consortium cooperation. We're at 41 total protocols. Manageable? The infinite bureaucracy can structure 41 protocols, Senator Thoraxi confirmed. We can have initial drafts within 3 years. 3 weeks, Zara countered. Impossible. You have 847 species represented here. Assign each species ownership of specific protocol development. Distribute the workload. Parallelize instead of serialize. 3 weeks. Marcus pulled up another slide. Here's the assignment matrix. Chronoweavers, you get the level 4 protocols. Civilizations on the brink, where your temporal perspective helps identify intervention windows. Empathic collective, level 3 protocols. Active crisis management, where your emotional intelligence is crucial. Silicon Confederacy, technological threat categories across all levels. Lumini, you get the monitoring and assessment frameworks. Infinite bureaucracy, you coordinate it all and maintain the master documentation. And humans? Asked Healer Ziornath. What protocols do you claim? Jace smiled slightly. We don't claim any. We're too new, too unknown. But we offer ourselves as test cases. Study how Earth has handled near-extinction events. We've been at level 3 or 4 about a dozen times in the last century. Climate change, nuclear standoff, pandemic, AI development. We're your living laboratory. The admission hung in the air. These humans were offering themselves as examples of civilizations that nearly failed. That's Remarkably honest, Vexthoria observed. That's remarkably strategic, corrected Commander Silix. They establish expertise through vulnerability. Clever. It's both, Zara admitted. Look, we don't have fancy temporal perception or millennia-long lifespans. What we have is recent raw experience with existential threats. Use it. Learn from our mistakes so other civilizations don't have to make them. Krelvass's temporal fragments swirled in what might have been admiration. Very well. I move that we accept the meta-category framework and protocol assignment matrix as proposed, with immediate implementation. Seconded, said multiple delegates. The vote took only 30 minutes, a record. Zara checked her primitive timekeeping device. Hour 2 complete. 1 hour left. Let's tackle the hard part, funding and oversight. The hard part. Senator Thoraxy's appendages quivered. We've resolved centuries of debate in 2 hours. What could possibly be harder? Getting you all to agree to pay for it, Zara said with a grin. And making sure nobody abuses the system. That's where every good plan dies, money and trust. Vexthoria settled her consciousness into full focus. If the humans could somehow resolve resource allocation disputes between 847 species in under an hour, they were far more remarkable than anyone had given them credit for. All right, Zara said, cracking her knuckles again. Who wants to go first in explaining why their species shouldn't have to pay for saving dying civilizations? The silence was deafening. Then Commander Silix chimed, a sound that might have been laughter. Well played, human. Well played. The final hour. The problem with funding, Marcus began, projecting financial models, is that everyone wants the benefit but nobody wants the cost. So we flip it, you only pay for the interventions aligned with your values, and you only benefit from the results proportionally. Explain, demanded the Silicon Confederacy's representative, a geometric entity named Processor Velcane. Simple, Jay said. A civilization facing AI extinction gets saved primarily through Silicon Confederacy funding, since you value and benefit most from technological innovation. When that civilization eventually joins the consortium and contributes their advanced AI insights, the Silicon Confederacy gets priority access. The empathic collective contributed less to that specific intervention, so they get standard access. But what about civilizations facing environmental collapse? Asked Healer Ziwarnath. The empathic collective would fund that? Partially, Marcus confirmed. Environmental issues often stem from social failures. That's where species like the Lumini who value wisdom and long-term thinking would co-fund. The resulting civilization would contribute insights on sustainability and social cohesion, benefiting both contributors proportionally. Vexthoria processed this rapidly. You're creating a marketplace of intervention. We're creating aligned incentives, Zara corrected. Everyone pays for what they value. Everyone benefits from what they funded. Species that contribute more to overall interventions get more influence in the Oversight Council. Oversight Council? Krelvass's temporal fragments sharpened with interest. You didn't think we'd let everyone do whatever they want, did you? Jace pulled up a new diagram. Rotating council of 47 species, elected yearly by the full consortium. They approve all interventions, monitor implementation, and handle disputes. Representatives must be from species that contributed to the intervention pool in the previous cycle. Excluding non-contributors from oversight? Senator Thoraxy's appendages moved in what might have been approval. That's actually brilliant. It ensures only invested parties make decisions. It also prevents freeloading, added Processor Velcane. Logical. But what about poor civilizations? Healer Ziwarnath protested. Species with limited resources who still want to contribute? Marcus smiled. Contribution isn't only financial. You can contribute expertise, personnel, resources, or technology. A species that can't afford monetary investment might contribute medical teams, cultural advisors, or terraforming technology. Value is value. And there's a base intervention fund, Zara added, supported by mandatory minimal contributions from all consortium members, 0.01% of GDP equivalent. That covers emergency responses when a civilization is dying right now and there's no time for committee approval. The Oversight Council audits those expenditures quarterly. Vexthoria found herself deeply impressed. You've created a system with distributed authority, aligned incentives, and accountability mechanisms. This is sophisticated. This is how humans fund everything from local government to international space programs, Marcus said. We've had thousands of years to figure out what works when selfish actors need to cooperate for mutual benefit. Selfish actors? Krelvass seemed offended. Everyone's selfish, Jay said calmly. Even altruism is selfish. It makes you feel good to help. The trick isn't eliminating self-interest. It's channeling it productively. Commander Silix's crystalline form chimed with what was definitely amusement. The human speaks truth. We are all selfish. We Marshal Concordat wish to preserve potential allies. The empathic collective wishes to ease their own empathic distress at suffering. The chronoweavers wish to preserve timeline diversity. All selfish motivations. All leading to the same action, intervention. Exactly, Zara said. So stop pretending you're above self-interest and start using it. The system works with your nature, not against it. Senator Thoraxi was silent for a long moment, processing. Then, I believe this is the first truly implementable framework presented in 3 centuries. I move for immediate adoption. The vote was swift, 718 to 129. All right, Zara said, checking her chronometer. 28 minutes left. Let's tackle the last major issue, cultural interference limits. How do you save a civilization without destroying what makes them unique? This sparked immediate debate. The empathic collective wanted minimal interference. The Silicon Confederacy advocated for aggressive technological uplift. The chronoweavers spoke of temporal integrity. The contemplative ascendancy demanded respect for philosophical development. Stop, Jace commanded. You're doing it again, arguing different things. Let's establish principles, not protocols. Principle 1, minimal viable intervention. We do only what's necessary to prevent extinction, nothing more. Agree? Slow consensus emerged. Species nodded, chimed, pulsed agreement. Principle 2, transparency within reason. After successful intervention, the civilization learns what happened and why. They choose whether to maintain consortium contact. Agree? More agreement, though some hesitation from the chronoweavers. Principle 3, cultural preservation priority. If choosing between methods of intervention, choose the one that preserves more of the civilization's existing culture and trajectory. Agree? Universal agreement. Principle 4, the civilization's choice matters. If they explicitly reject intervention even at cost of extinction, that choice is honored. Agree? This sparked debate, but Zara cut through it. Look, you can't force salvation on people who don't want it. That's not saving them, that's conquering them. Either they have agency or they don't. Healer Zuarnatha's liquid light form rippled with emotion. But if they choose extinction out of ignorance, then they're informed of their choices and consequences, and the decision remains theirs, Marcus said firmly. Anything else is imperialism wearing a humanitarian mask. Vexthoria spoke slowly, feeling the weight of millennia of Lumini philosophy. The humans are correct. True wisdom is allowing others to learn even through failure. We can offer knowledge, offer aid, offer alternatives. We cannot force acceptance. Even the Lumini agree, Commander Silix chimed. I call the vote. It passed, 823 to 24. Zara looked at her chronometer. 5 minutes to spare. So, to summarize, we have a classification system, protocol assignment structure, funding mechanism with aligned incentives, oversight council with accountability, and cultural interference principles. Anything critical we're missing? Implementation timeline, Senator Thoraxi said. When does this begin? Today, Zara said simply. Right now. The Oversight Council gets elected immediately. Protocol development begins tomorrow. The Emergency Intervention Fund activates the moment the consortium administrator signs off. First intervention could happen within a week. A week. Multiple delegates expressed shock. There are civilizations dying right now, Jay said quietly. How many more do you want to lose while you prepare? Silence fell across the chamber. I move, Vexthoria heard herself saying, that we implement the human framework immediately, with the Oversight Council election to occur within 6 hours, protocol development to be completed within 3 weeks, and the first intervention assessment to be conducted within 7 days. Seconded, chimed Commander Silix. Thirded, added Krelvass, his temporal fragments aligning in agreement. The final vote was overwhelming, 834 to 13. Zara smiled broadly. Then we're done. 3 hours as promised. You've just created the Galactic Intervention Framework. Congratulations on accomplishing in 3 hours what you couldn't do in 3 centuries. Impossible, whispered High Philosopher Zendith. How did they do this? Marcus packed up their presentation device. We treated it like a problem to solve, not a philosophy to perfect. Humans are great at that, probably because we barely survive long enough to overthink things. As the chamber erupted in celebration, disbelief, and the beginning of immediate implementation planning, Vexthoria approached the three humans. Captain Okafor, she said formally, your species has rendered the Galactic Consortium a service of incalculable value. How can we repay you? Zara exchanged glances with Marcus and Jace, then grinned. Actually, we have a favor to ask. The price of success. The celebration in the Eternal Chamber gradually transformed into organized chaos as species began forming working groups, electing Oversight Council members and drafting protocol frameworks. But Vexthoria noticed the three humans had been politely escorted to a side chamber. She followed. Inside, Protocol Officer Zinmeri floated before the humans, his energy form pulsing with what seemed like anxiety. You must understand the delicacy of this situation, Zinmeri was saying. Your success today was unexpected, unprecedented. It has implications. Implications? Zara asked, her tone carefully neutral. Vexthoria entered the chamber. Let me explain. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that our assessment models did not predict. This is concerning. Concerning how? Marcus asked, though his eyes suggested he already knew. Earth is currently classified as a Level 3 civilization, Vexthoria explained. Pre-space capable, facing multiple existential threats, probability of self-destruction within 2 centuries at 67%. You are, technically, one of the civilizations this framework was designed to potentially save. Jace laughed without humor. So we just helped design the system that might be used to intervene in our own development. That's ironic. More than ironic, Zinmeri said. Earth's rapid development is precisely the kind of unstable trajectory that triggers intervention protocols. You achieved FTL travel decades ahead of our projections. You've displayed social cooperation capabilities we didn't think you possessed. You're accelerating in ways that suggest either transcendence or catastrophic collapse. And you can't tell which, Zara finished. So the question is, do you intervene now or wait and see? Precisely. Krelvas materialized in the chamber, his temporal fragments swirling. I have examined your timeline. In 73% of probable futures, humanity either achieves consortium membership within a century or suffers near-complete extinction within the same period. You are the most volatile species we've encountered in millennia. Marcus removed his glasses, cleaning them, a nervous gesture Vexthoria was learning to recognize. And now you're worried we might be too dangerous to leave alone or too valuable to lose. Your species thinks in paradoxes, Vexthoria observed. You're brilliant and self-destructive, cooperative and violently tribal. You solve 3-century-old problems in hours, yet can't agree on basic resource distribution on your own planet. You are frustrating. Zara smiled slightly. Welcome to being human. So what's the favor you're asking, or is it a demand? Neither, said a new voice. Administrator Kyreth entered, a being of crystallized starlight who rarely appeared personally. It is an offer. The humans stood straighter, recognizing authority even across species lines. Your performance today has earned humanity a unique position, Kyreth continued. You are simultaneously subjects of potential intervention and architects of the intervention framework. This paradox must be resolved. How? Jace asked. By making you partners, Kyreth said simply. Humanity joins the Galactic Consortium today, not as a member civilization but as an observer species. You maintain complete autonomy. No intervention occurs on Earth without explicit human government approval. But in exchange, you help us implement the framework you designed. You want us to help save other civilizations, Marcus said slowly, while we're still trying to save our own. Who better? Commander Silix materialized beside Kyreth. You understand existential crisis intimately. You know how to make impossible choices under pressure. You are currently living the experience we're trying to prevent for others. Vexthoria added, and candidly we need your methodology. 3 hours. You resolved in 3 hours what we could not resolve in 3 centuries. That capability is valuable. But there's a catch, Zara said. It wasn't a question. Always, Kyreth confirmed. Humanity becomes a test case. We study you. We learn from you. Your successes and failures in managing your own existential risks will inform how we help others. Earth becomes a living laboratory. That's invasive, Marcus said flatly. That's survival, Krelvas countered. Your species is barreling toward either transcendence or extinction. Allow us to observe, to understand, and when you ask for help, if you ask for help, we will know how to provide it without destroying what makes you human. Jace looked at his teammates. Some unspoken communication passed between them. We can't accept this on behalf of Earth, Zara finally said. We're just a first contact diplomatic team. This needs to go to the United Earth Council. Of course, Kyreth agreed. But we need your recommendation. You've spent 3 hours with us. You understand the consortium better than any humans before you. What do you advise your people? Another long silence. I think, Marcus said carefully, we should accept. Not because it's safe, it's not. Not because we trust you completely, we don't. But because we need help and we're too proud to ask for it directly. This way we get access to your knowledge, your resources, your perspectives while maintaining autonomy. Plus, Jace added, if we're going to help save other civilizations, we better figure out how to save ourselves first. Being observed might actually help us get our act together. Zara nodded slowly. It's a risk. But everything is. We'll recommend acceptance, with strict protocols on what can be observed and what remains private. We're not lab rats. We're partners who happen to be useful case studies. Acceptable, Kyreth said. You have 1 Earth week to present this to your government and return with their decision. And the favor you wanted to ask? Vexthoria reminded them. You said you had a favor. Zara grinned, some of her earlier humor returning. Yeah, about that. We need you to help us with our climate crisis. It's not quite existential yet, but we're getting there. Figure if we're going to help you save civilizations, you could help us save ours. The chamber fell silent, then Healer Zioranatha's liquid light form rippled with what might have been joy. The humans asked for help. Finally they ask. Environmental stabilization is well within our capabilities, Processor Velcane confirmed. We could deploy atmospheric regulators, carbon sequestration systems, ocean pH stabilizers. No, Marcus interrupted. We need knowledge, not solutions. We need to fix it ourselves or we won't learn. But we could use advice, technology transfer, and maybe some help buying time while we implement changes. Vexthoria felt something like admiration. You want to save yourselves. We have to, Jace said simply. Otherwise we're just another species that needed rescue. We want to be a species that figured it out, with a little help from friends. Friends? Krelvas repeated, tasting the word. Humans make friends quickly. It's a survival trait, Zara said. We're individually weak, so we bond with anything that won't eat us. Sometimes things that will eat us. It's worked so far. Administrator Kyretha's crystalline form seemed to brighten. Very well. The consortium will provide Earth with climate stabilization technology and expertise, deployed through human implementation. In exchange, humanity provides consultation on the Galactic Intervention Framework implementation and accepts observer status. Deal, Zara said, extending her hand, then awkwardly withdrew it. Sorry, human gesture. We seal agreements with hand clasping. Kyreth extended a tendril of starlight. It wrapped around Zara's hand, warm and solid. Deal, the administrator confirmed. Vexthoria watched this moment, recording it in her vast memory. The first formal alliance between humanity and the Galactic Consortium, sealed with a handshake and mutual need. Somehow, it felt more real than 3 centuries of careful diplomacy. One more thing, Marcus said. What happens to the civilizations you've already lost? The 1,847 that self-destructed during your deliberation? The mood darkened. They are lost, Krelvas said quietly. We cannot reverse extinction. No, Marcus agreed. But you can remember them. Document them. Learn from them. Make sure their failures teach us how to help others succeed. That's the least you owe them. The human is right, Vexthoria said. We have been so focused on future interventions that we have not honored those we failed to save through our inaction. Then that becomes part of the framework, Administrator Kyreth decided. A memorial archive. A record of lessons learned from losses. Maintained by humanity since they understand failure intimately. Thanks, I think, Zara muttered. But Vexthoria saw Marcus nod acceptance. These humans didn't shy from harsh truths. They faced them, learned from them, and moved forward. Perhaps that was their real gift to the consortium. 3 months later. The memorial archive floated in the same space as the Eternal Chamber, a crystalline structure containing the stories of 1,847 lost civilizations. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before it, adding the latest entry. Civilization 1848, he narrated into the recording system. The melodic harmonizers of Kepler 442b. Musical species communicated through complex songs. Destroyed themselves through mimetic warfare, weaponized music that rewrote neurological patterns. Lost 3 weeks before the Galactic Intervention Framework became operational. He paused, grief evident in his voice. If we'd been 3 weeks faster, they'd still be alive. But we weren't. So we remember them and we do better next time. Vexthoria approached silently. Over the past months, she'd spent considerable time with the humans, learning their ways. They'd become something like friends, though she still found the concept strange. You carry their deaths heavily, she observed. Someone should, Marcus replied. 1,848 civilizations. Trillions of individuals. All lost while the consortium debated. While we debated, Vexthoria corrected gently. The guilt is ours, not yours. Humanity is not responsible. Humanity is responsible for the ones we lose from now on, Marcus said. We're part of the framework now. Every day we're slow, every mistake we make costs lives. And yet you've helped save 3 already. It was true. In 3 months, the Galactic Intervention Framework had successfully intervened in 3 civilizations: the Crystalline Singers, Asteroid Impact, the Aqueous Collective, Environmental Collapse, and the Binary Thinkers, AI Uprising. All 3 had been stabilized with minimal cultural interference. 3 saves, 1 loss, Marcus said. The loss was Civilization 1848. We assessed them, approved intervention but deployed too slowly. Won't happen again. You've accelerated deployment protocols by 300%, Vexthoria reminded him. The infinite bureaucracy considers you a miracle worker. I'm a human who knows people die while forms get filed. Makes me efficient, not miraculous. Zara's voice came over their communication devices. Marcus, Vexthoria, you're needed in the Oversight Council chamber. We have a situation. They materialized moments later into controlled chaos. The Oversight Council, now meeting weekly instead of whenever convenient, was reviewing multiple holographic displays. What's happening? Marcus asked. Jace looked up from a tactical display. 4 potential crises simultaneously. 2 environmental collapses, 1 nuclear standoff, 1 technological cascade. We can respond to 3 with current resources. The implication hung heavy. 1 civilization would be left to face extinction alone. Triage protocols, Zara said, her voice tight. We choose 3 except that 1 dies. That's why we have the protocols. No, said a new voice. Administrator Kyreth materialized. That's why we adapt. Explain, Commander Silix demanded. Humanity taught us to move faster, decide quicker, act with imperfection rather than perfect paralysis. But they also taught us something else. Desperate times require desperate measures. Kyreth gestured and the displays reorganized. We can respond to all 4 if we accept higher risk and lower success probability in each. That violates the conservative deployment doctrine, Senator Thoraxi objected. The conservative deployment doctrine ensures high success rates, Krelvas countered, but accepts losses due to resource constraints. The human doctrine accepts higher risk to save more lives. The human doctrine, Marcus said quietly, gets more people killed when it fails. Everyone turned to look at him. I'm not saying don't do it, Marcus continued. I'm saying go in eyes open. If we stretch ourselves to cover all 4, we increase the chance that 1 or more interventions fail. Maybe we save all 4. Maybe we lose all 4. Probably we save 3 and lose 1 anyway. But we'll have tried. Is that wisdom or recklessness? Healer Ziwarnath asked. Yes, Jace answered. It's both. That's humanity in a nutshell. Vexthoria felt her consciousness expanding, considering all angles. 3 months ago she would have advocated for conservative action, careful analysis, certain success in limited scope. But 3 months of working with humans had changed her. I vote we attempt all 4, she announced. We accept higher risk in service of saving more lives. That is the purpose of this framework. Seconded, chimed Commander Silix. The vote was swift, 38-9 in favor. Deployment in 6 hours, Zara announced, taking command. Team assignments as follows. Marcus, you're with the environmental collapse in Sector 47. Jace, you take the nuclear standoff in Sector 12. I'll handle the tech cascade in Sector 23. Vexthoria, you're primary on the second environmental collapse in Sector 8. Me? Vexthoria's optical sensors widened. I'm an observer, not an operative. You've observed long enough, Zara said with a slight smile. Time to act. Besides, environmental crises are Lumini's specialty, long-term thinking, systemic analysis. You're perfect for it. I have never conducted a field intervention. Neither had we until 3 months ago, Marcus pointed out. You learn by doing. Welcome to the human approach. Vexthoria felt something she hadn't experienced in her long existence. Exhilaration mixed with terror. It was deeply uncomfortable and strangely addictive. Very well, she said. I accept. 6 hours later, 4 intervention teams deployed simultaneously across the galaxy. Vexthoria materialized on a planet whose oceans were acidifying at catastrophic rates. The native species, aquatic beings called the Tideborn, were dying by millions. She had 72 hours to stabilize the ecosystem before total collapse. She began by doing what humans had taught her. Stop thinking, start acting. Deploy the pH regulators. Establish the buffer zones. Communicate with the Tideborn leadership. Simple, direct, honest. We are from the Galactic Consortium, she explained through translation matrices. Your world is dying. We can help stabilize it, but you must make changes to prevent recurrence. Will you accept our aid? The Tideborn leader, a massive being named Wavesinger, regarded her with ancient eyes. Why would you help us? What do you gain? Vexthoria thought of Marcus's words. We gain nothing material. We help because we can, because you deserve a chance to survive, and because we failed to help 1,848 civilizations before you. We will not fail again. 1,848? Wavesinger's form rippled with grief. So many lost. Yes. And you will not be 1,849. The intervention succeeded. Barely. By the 71st hour, ocean pH had stabilized. The Tideborn had agreed to implement long-term environmental reforms. Millions had died, but billions survived. Vexthoria collapsed from exhaustion, a sensation her long-lived species rarely experienced. She had worked continuously for 3 days, pushing her capabilities to their limits. And she had saved a civilization. When all 4 teams reconvened, the results were mixed. Marcus's environmental intervention succeeded fully. Jace's nuclear standoff was defused. Zara's technological cascade was contained, though with significant casualties. Vexthoria's ocean world survived. 4 for 4. Against the odds, against the probabilities, they'd saved them all. This won't always work, Marcus said quietly during their debriefing. Someday we'll stretch ourselves and lose everything. Perhaps, Kyreth agreed. But today, for civilizations live that would have died. That is worth celebrating. And learning from, Zara added. We got lucky. We need to figure out how to make our own luck more consistently. Vexthoria looked at her human colleagues. No, her human friends. In 3 months, they transformed a 3-century-old debate into an active intervention framework. They'd saved 7 civilizations. They taught an ancient consortium how to move fast and fix things. And Earth's climate stabilization was proceeding ahead of schedule. Humanity was applying the same desperate urgency to saving themselves that they brought to saving others. It was chaotic, imperfect, and probably insane. It was also working. You know, Vexthoria said slowly, when you first arrived, I thought your species was too young, too reckless, too unstable to contribute meaningfully to galactic governance. And now? Zara asked with a grin. Now I think you're too young, too reckless, too unstable, and that's exactly what we needed. The consortium was dying of caution. You reminded us how to live with risk. Krelvass's temporal fragments aligned in agreement. The humans ended a 300-year debate in 3 hours. They have since ended 7 civilizations' death spirals. The correlation is clear. Urgency saves lives. Though perhaps not all urgency should be channeled through coffee and deadlines, Senator Thoraxi added dryly. My species may never recover from the stress of 3-hour decision cycles. You'll adapt, Marcus said with a smile. Humans did. And we're way more fragile than you. As the debriefing concluded and the team dispersed, Vexthoria found herself lingering with the 3 humans who had changed everything. Captain Okafor, she said formally. Dr. Chin. Commander Reeves. I wish to propose something unusual. Go for it, Zara encouraged. When your species eventually achieves full consortium membership, and you will, I have no doubt, I wish to transfer to Earth's diplomatic service. I want to learn more about how humans think, how you solve the impossible, how you survive yourselves. Marcus blinked in surprise. I don't even know if that's allowed. It will be, Vexthoria said with confidence. I am an observer. I observe what works. Humanity works. Chaotic, messy, and imperfect, but you work. I want to understand why. Because we have to, Jace said simply. We don't have the luxury of long lifespans or do-over timelines. We get one shot, so we take it. Every time. Yes, Vexthoria agreed. That urgency. That desperation channeled into determination. That is what the galaxy needs more of. Zara raised her coffee cup. She'd managed to establish a consortium coffee supply chain, much to everyone's bemusement. To ending debates and starting solutions. To 3-hour miracles and 3-month transformations. To humanity teaching the galaxy how to be human. They touched cups, glasses, and energy fields in an approximation of a human toast. In the background, the memorial archive glowed softly, holding the memories of 1,848 lost civilizations. But alongside it now stood something new, the active intervention database tracking 7 saved civilizations and counting. The debate was over. The work had begun. And somehow, impossibly, 3 humans from a barely spacefaring species had become the galaxy's most effective teachers in the art of productive action. The Council had debated for 300 years. The humans ended it in 3 hours. And the universe would never be the same. Epilogue, 1 year later. The Eternal Chamber had been repurposed. Where once endless debates echoed, now rapid-fire intervention councils met weekly. The Memorial Archive had grown to 1,893 lost civilizations, 45 more identified from historical records. But the active intervention database had grown faster. 63 successful interventions, 12 partial successes, 4 failures. 79 civilizations that would have died now lived. Captain Zara Okafor stood at the podium, addressing the full Galactic Consortium Assembly, over 3,000 species now as saved civilizations began joining. 1 year ago, she began, my team walked into this chamber expecting to pitch our ideas and probably get politely dismissed. Instead, you let 3 humans with coffee and confidence issues completely restructure your approach to existential intervention. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a sound that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. I'm not going to pretend it's been perfect, Zara continued. We've lost civilizations we tried to save. We've made mistakes. We've had to completely rewrite protocol 17 times. But we've also saved 79 civilizations and counting. That's 79 worlds full of beings who get to see tomorrow. She paused, looking at her notes, then set them aside. When we first met, Observer Vexthoria asked me how humans could possibly contribute to galactic governance. The truth is we couldn't. Not in the way you were governing. Your way requires patience, wisdom, and millennia of perspective we just don't have. But here's what we do have. We have urgency. We have creativity born from desperation. We have a really strong preference for being alive, and we assume others feel the same way. Most importantly, we have experience with being the civilization on the brink. We know what it feels like when help doesn't come in time. So yeah, we're young and reckless and we drink way too much coffee. But we're also still here against the odds, and we're willing to share everything we've learned about survival with anyone who needs it. Vexthoria stepped forward. She was now Earth's official consortium liaison, the first non-human to serve in human diplomatic corps. When humans first proposed their framework, Vexthoria said, I thought it was reckless. I was correct. It is reckless. It is also effective. Sometimes the galaxy needs reckless effectiveness more than cautious perfection. The Lumini have a saying, wisdom is knowing when to observe and when to act. Humans taught us that we had been observing too long. It was time to act. Administrator Kyreth materialized center chamber. This assembly is called to vote on Earth's petition for full consortium membership. All standard criteria have been met: stable FTL travel, peaceful first contact, contribution to galactic welfare, and successful management of homeworld existential risks. Earth's climate stabilization program is now 73% complete, Kyreth continued. Their global cooperation index has increased 340% in 1 year. They have successfully intervened in 79 civilizations' crises while solving their own. By any measure, they qualify for membership. The vote is called. The results were overwhelming: 2,847 in favor, 43 against, 110 abstaining. Humanity was officially a galactic consortium member species. Marcus Chin watched from the human delegation seats, tears in his eyes. 1 year ago, Earth was a species on the brink. Now they were saving others from the same fate. Jace leaned over. We did it. We survived ourselves, Marcus agreed. Barely. But we did. And now we help others do the same. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as victims requiring rescue, not as primitives requiring guidance, but as partners, flawed, urgent, and effective partners. The Memorial Archive received a final edition that day. Not a lost civilization, but a message from the consortium. For 1,893 civilizations, help came too late or not at all. We remember you. We learned from your loss. And we promise, we will do better. The debate is over. The work continues. You will not be forgotten. It was signed by every member species, but authored by Marcus Chen. In her quarters, Vexthoria reviewed the year's data. Her Lumini perspective, spanning epochs, allowed her to see patterns. Before humans, 300 years of debate, 1,847 civilizations lost. After humans, 1 year of action, 79 civilizations saved. The efficiency was staggering. But it was also unsustainable at current deployment rates. They needed more resources, more teams, more protocols. They needed more humans. Which was fortunate because Earth's population had just received an interesting new career option: Galactic Intervention Specialist. Applications were flooding in. Zara found Vexthoria reviewing data and sat down beside her, another human gesture the Lumini observer had adopted. Thinking about what comes next? Zara asked. Always. Your species thinks in days and weeks. Mine thinks in centuries and millennia. The combination is productive. That's the nicest way anyone's ever called humans short-sighted. I didn't say short-sighted. I said short-term focused. It's your strength. You see the urgent need and act on it. We see the long-term pattern and plan for it. Together we're effective across all time scales. Zara smiled. So what does your long-term perspective see coming? Vexthoria's optical sensors focused on distant data. I see 3,000 species learning to act with urgency. I see intervention protocols spreading across the galaxy. I see civilizations being saved that would have been lost. But I also see new challenges. The more we intervene, the more we influence. The more we influence, the more we risk creating dependency. We will need to evolve the framework again. Good thing we're good at that now, Zara said. How long do you think we have? By my estimates, 5 to 7 years before major framework revision becomes necessary. By human estimates, 2 to 3 years before you get impatient and start revising it anyway. They both laughed. You know what the best part is? Zara said. A year ago, the consortium was having one 3-century-long debate. Now you're having dozens of debates simultaneously, constantly, and actually making decisions. We didn't just end one debate, we taught you how to debate productively. You taught us how to disagree and still move forward, Vexthoria corrected. That is perhaps your greatest gift. My people seek consensus before action. Yours seek direction and course correct as you go. Both have value. Together we're better than either alone. Yes, together we are better. In the Memorial Archive, the count of lost civilizations remained frozen at 1,893. But beside it, the count of saved civilizations continued to climb. 80, 81, 82? The council had debated for 300 years. Humans ended it in 3 hours. And the work of saving the galaxy had only just begun.